Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a truly fascinating journey, looking into a really unconventional approach to wealth and maybe even more importantly, freedom.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
We're going to dissect the strategies of someone who, well, by all accounts, really defies the typical success story you usually hear about.
Right.
I mean, picture this. Someone with a net worth over $100 million, who famously doesn't run some huge billion-dollar company, actively avoids meetings. You almost never see him in the media.
How does that even work, right? It seems counterintuitive.
It really does. It's such a striking contrast to that, relentless hustle culture, the very public persona that's often glorified as the way to make it. But this is different. It's not just about the money. It feels more like a very intentional design for living.
And what's so captivating about Naval Ravikant, the tech investor, philosopher, co-founder of AngelList, is that he seems completely unconcerned with those usual markers of success.
Like the big office, the constant public appearances.
Exactly. Or just chasing more. Instead, he's meticulously, almost quietly, built a life where he's in full command. Total control over his time, his energy, his decisions.
Yeah.
And his core philosophy just nails it. Getting rich is not about money. It's about freedom. That's the key.
Freedom, not just accumulation.
Right. He isn't stacking wealth for status symbols. He's doing it with this very specific goal, buying back his entire life, hour by precious hour.
Exactly. Well, so many people are stuck in that high-paying job rat race or constantly seeking public validation fame.
The hamster wheel.
Right. Naval has quietly, almost invisibly, built this portfolio of assets that do two things at once, really synergistically. They generate serious wealth, and they grant him total control over his life.
It's like a blueprint for lasting freedom, isn't it? Not just fleeting cash.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that, right there, that's our mission for this deep dive, to figure out precisely how self-made individuals can build that kind of permanent autonomy, that quiet abundance.
So the big question for you, listening right now, is probably this. What kind of assets do you actually need to live life on your own terms?
Yeah, that's the crucial question.
And it's not just theory, right? It's about shifting your perspective, moving away from just piling up money to strategically using your resources for a very specific, deeply desired way of living.
Designing the life first.
Exactly. Design the life, then build the financial structure to support it, not the other way around.
And we're going to try and uncover exactly how Naval pulled this off by exploring what we're calling his 7 silent assets.
Silent assets, I like that.
Yeah, because they're often overlooked, right?
Right.
But they're incredibly powerful engines that didn't just help him escape the rat race.
Yeah.
They helped him escape it permanently, completely on his own terms.
Okay, let's get into it. I'm ready.
Let's dive in. All right, the first silent asset we really need to unpack is angel investing, basically owning the right bets really early on.
Yeah, this is foundational for him, I think.
Most of us, we're conditioned to think that getting ahead means working harder, climbing the corporate ladder, or maybe building a huge startup yourself. That's the usual narrative.
Grind culture, right.
Totally. But Naval took this path that, well, back then, it felt pretty radical in how quiet and forward-thinking it was. He didn't chase promotions. He wasn't even trying to build the next unicorn with thousands of employees.
Oh, not at all.
Instead, he became this sort of silent architect behind some massive companies by getting in super early and, maybe more importantly, investing really wisely.
It's amazing how he positioned himself. You got to think back to the early 2010s.
Right. Different world.
Yeah, people were still figuring out smartphones, debating if social media was even a real thing. And while most folks were skeptical, Naval was actually writing checks.
To ideas that seemed kind of crazy at the time.
Totally crazy to most. Take Uber. It was barely an idea in Travis Kalanick's head, right? This app for a luxury car service.
Seemed niche.
Very niche. Or Twitter's still just this quirky side project, no clear way to make money. People dismissed it as trivial.
Yeah, what's the point? People said.
Exactly. And Postmates. That was maybe the wildest bet. People ordering burritos to their door. Logistically, it looked like a nightmare. But while everyone else was hesitating, questioning, waiting for proof, Naval was saying yes and putting his money down. Real capital on the line.
And crucially, it wasn't just about the potential cash return, was it? He saw something deeper.
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't just buying stock certificates. He was buying leverage, future leverage.
Explain that. Leverage how?
He was acquiring future upside that could grow massively over time without needing his constant presence, his day-to-day work. That's the leverage.
Okay. Detached growth.
Exactly. It's subtle, but so important. And it ties right into that famous quote of his, the one that's become almost a mantra.
You're not going to get rich renting out your time.
You must own equity, a piece of a business, to gain your financial freedom.
Yeah.
That wasn't just a catchy phrase for him. It was like his guiding compass for finding opportunities.
So owning a piece was non-negotiable for freedom.
Absolutely. For Naval, angel investing wasn't just gambling on hot trends. It was about strategic ownership. Period.
Right.
He fundamentally shifted from that linear thinking hours for dollars to acquiring these tiny but potentially explosive slices of the future.
Tiny slices, big potential.
Huge potential. And the beauty is, when a company like Uber or Twitter just exploded globally, that initial check he wrote, maybe relatively small at the time, could literally turn into tens, maybe hundreds of millions. And the genius part, the silent part, is he didn't have to operate the business. He wasn't in those stressful Monday morning meetings, fighting fires.
Right. Someone else was doing the grind.
Yeah. Exactly. The founders were putting in the insane 80-hour weeks, building, growing. Naval just helped them early on, believed when maybe few others did, and then, this is key, he stayed out of the way. Let them run with it.
That staying out of the way part feels really important for the silent aspect.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about picking winners, but understanding the structure of these, what does he call them, asymmetric bets.
Yes, asymmetric bets. He totally got that the odds in angel investing are rough. Like 90%, maybe more, of startups just fail. It's a high-risk game.
Definitely.
But the magic, the asymmetry, comes from the small percentage, the 10% or less that actually succeed, because those can return 1,000 times your money or even more.
Wow.
So the implication is huge. You don't need to be right all the time. You just need to be right big and right early.
So limited downside, theoretically unlimited upside.
Exactly. Your risk is capped at your initial investment, but the potential reward is exponential. It takes serious conviction, patience, and you have to be okay with a lot of uncertainty.
And he didn't just sit back and wait for these deals to land in his lap, did he? He actively built his deal flow.
Oh, absolutely not passive. This is where AngelList comes in, which we'll talk about next. But by building that platform connecting founders and investors, he basically put himself right at the center of the early stage tech world.
Became the nucleus.
The absolute nucleus. That network, that central position, gave him access to the best deals way before they were public knowledge, before they looked like obvious winners everyone was chasing. It fed itself.
A self-reinforcing opportunity machine.
Perfectly put.
But what really strikes me isn't just who he backed, but how he thought about capital itself. Not just as a tool for making more money.
No, it was more profound. He saw capital as buying permission. Permission to walk away from obligation.
Permission to say no.
Exactly. Every equity stake he held was like a tiny engine quietly working for him, compounding while he slept.
Right. Contrast that with the founder.
Yeah, the founder's grinding 80-hour weeks, sacrificing everything. But if Naval owned just, say, 0.5% of that company, he'd eventually reap massive rewards from that growth without enduring the daily grind, the stress, the burnout.
And you said this isn't exploitation, it's design.
It's leverage, and incredibly smart design is understanding where value is created and positioning yourself to benefit from it with minimal ongoing effort. And the deeper emotional truth, I think, is that he wasn't chasing wealth for Lambos or status.
Right.
He was meticulously building a buffer, a shield against dependency. By owning pieces of these potential rocket ships, he was systematically buying back his time, his peace of mind.
And ultimately, his freedom to just say no. No to meetings, no to demands on his time, no to things he just didn't want to do.
Because that's when freedom really starts, isn't it? He says freedom doesn't kick in when you hit your first million.
When does it start then?
It starts when your money, your assets, start working harder for you than you work for them. Angel investing was his primary lever for getting there.
Okay, so for listeners, maybe direct angel investing isn't feasible right now. What's the takeaway mindset?
Great question. It's not everyone become an angel investor. It's about internalizing Naval's lens. Look for that disproportionate upside in your own life or career. Where's leverage hiding?
Leverage you can acquire with maybe minimal effort, but huge potential return.
Exactly. Think, how can I get my money or my efforts working for me, not just by me? Cultivate that ownership mentality, as he says. Own, don't rent.
Right.
Bet long-term on ideas with truly uncapped potential. And position yourself where the waves are just forming, not where they're already crashing down.
Get ahead of the curve.
That's what Naval did. Angel investing became that silent, powerful engine driving him towards wealth, yes, but more importantly, towards that profound freedom.
It really highlights that power of owning a piece of the future, which I guess leads perfectly into the next asset and entire ecosystem of ownership he built. Okay, so angel investing is about owning pieces of companies. But Naval went further. He didn't just participate in the game. He basically built the stadium.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the second silent asset, AngelList itself.
Yeah, the ecosystem asset, the thing that literally printed opportunity for him.
Most people think, okay, to get rich, I need to build a killer product or service. But Naval did something different. He built a platform where products and the people making them could find each other.
It's a subtle but massive distinction. AngelList, co-founded in 2010, wasn't just another startup. It was like an infrastructural earthquake in the venture capital world.
How so?
Yeah.
What was it like before AngelList?
Oh, it was incredibly opaque, really exclusive, a closed club, basically, run by a few gatekeepers. If you were a new founder trying to get seed money, good luck even getting a meeting. It was intimidating.
Right, hard to break in.
Very. Naval disrupted that whole thing with this really bold, democratizing idea. What if we made startup investing open, scalable, transparent, for everyone?
Flatten the playing field.
Exactly. And boy, did it work. AngelList pioneered matching early-stage startups with angel investors at scale.
So it wasn't just facilitating deals, it was making the whole process accessible.
It totally democratized access to capital. It leveled the field for so many entrepreneurs who just couldn't get through the old gates. But the really big deal was how it grew beyond just matchmaking. It became a true ecosystem.
An ecosystem. Explain what that means here.
Okay, so Naval didn't just build AngelList to make money for himself. He built a machine that generated optionality for everyone involved.
Optionality. Meaning?
Creating future choices, possibilities you don't have to commit to right now, like having lots of doors open, giving you the freedom to pick one later, or none at all.
Okay. Keeps possibilities open.
Precisely. AngelList created this powerful, virtuous cycle. Startups found money faster, investors got access to way more deals, and Naval, sitting right at the center.
Own the rails.
He owned the rails. The whole system ran on his platform. He was like the central switchboard operator for early stage tech.
And this is the key insight, isn't it, for those obsessed with building the next unicorn?
Yeah, AngelList didn't actually need to become a multi-billion-dollar behemoth overnight for Naval to benefit hugely. It just needed to become inevitable.
The default tool.
The default, indispensable tool for startup fundraising. Which it absolutely did. It became like a utility.
And that inevitability, that utility status, allowed its value to just compound.
Quietly and consistently, almost organically. Over the years, AngelList just kept expanding. They launched syndicates, letting angels pool money, rolling funds, changing how funds raise capital, talent tools. They even spun off AngelList Venture, managing billions now.
Wow.
And even though Naval stepped back from running it day-to-day years ago, he still owns equity. And that equity just keeps printing upside, year after year, whether he's actively involved or not.
A truly self-sustaining asset.
Totally.
Which perfectly embodies that idea that he talks about productizing yourself.
Exactly. Instead of him personally having to negotiate every deal, sit in endless meetings, vet every single check, he built the system, the platform, that handles so much of that automatically. His face isn't the bottleneck. His time isn't the limiting factor for growth.
The platform runs, value grows, whether he shows up or not.
Right. Whether he's at a board meeting or meditating somewhere, the value accrues.
And that leads to this deeper lesson. Most people focus on building things. A product, a service, a company.
Tangible stuff.
Right. But Naval built networks. And then strategically positioned himself right at the center of the flow within those networks.
The flow of information, deals, talent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting at the nucleus of that kind of flow,
you don't have to hustle so hard. You just harvest.
Harvest the opportunities that naturally come through your central spot.
It's a powerful shift in thinking. AngelList isn't just a business. It's an ecosystem asset, a self-sustaining compounding engine.
And it quietly, consistently increased his wealth and influence.
Without him needing to dominate headlines or chase the next big IPO, he just built the digital pipes, owns the pipes, and gets paid as value flows through them. Quietly, consistently, freely.
That's real leverage. Ecosystem thinking,
right.
And a huge part of his path to freedom.
Now, obviously, building something like AngelList is incredibly hard. It takes tech skill, deep market understanding, orchestrating complex interactions, dealing with regulations. It's massive.
Not something everyone can replicate.
No. But the takeaway for listeners isn't build the next AngelList. It's look at the networks and platforms in your industry. How can you position yourself closer to the center of information flow or transaction flow?
How can you become the connector or the facilitator?
Instead of just being a participant on the edge, how can you own a piece of the flow? That's the principle. It exemplifies owning a piece and letting it work for you, which connects directly to the broader idea of equity itself.
Right, which brings us neatly to the third silent asset, equity ownership, the invisible wealth builder.
Invisible, but maybe the most powerful.
Most people are taught, get a good salary, high-paying job, stable company. That's the reliable path to wealth.
The conventional wisdom.
But Naval Ravikant, he'd say pretty bluntly, that's actually the slowest path, the most inefficient way to get truly wealthy.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words on this one. He hammers it home again and again. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. You must own equity, a piece of a business, to gain your financial freedom.
That quote again, it really is foundational for him.
It's the dividing line, isn't it? The separator between people endlessly trading hours for dollars and those building real, lasting wealth.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Equity is what separates workers from owners, fundamentally. And it's invisible, right? It doesn't show up on your monthly paycheck like salary does. Easy to overlook.
Very easy. Doesn't feel tangible in the short term.
But over time, for people who get how to acquire it and, crucially, hold it, it becomes the single biggest driver of genuine compounding wealth. And Naval got this super early. It was a core principle for him.
Well, everyone else was chasing the immediate cash.
He was strategically chasing ownership, consistently.
He made that choice early on, work for equity in startups. And it wasn't because he couldn't get a high salary. He definitely could have with his background.
Right, he had options.
Plenty. But he understood this basic, profound truth that the really wealthy internalize. Salary gives you comfort, predictability, which can actually be a trap.
A comfort trap.
Yeah. But equity, owning a piece of something that can grow on its own, that's what makes you free. It buys you options, real optionality.
And the power of equity, it's multi-layered, isn't it?
Totally. Unlike salary, which is linear work, more hours, get paid more, roughly. Equity scales effortlessly. It compounds, often exponentially. It grows way faster than any hourly wage ever could. And the big one, it doesn't need your physical presence or constant effort once you have it.
So you own a slice of the company's future, its growth, its exit, its profits.
Exactly. If the company 10Xs, your slice grows right along with it. And you didn't have to do 10X the work for that specific growth to happen. Your earlier insight, your earlier bet pays off later.
And Naval wasn't just putting cash in, right? He got equity in other ways, too.
Very strategically. He took advisory roles, offered his wisdom, his strategic guidance, his insights to early-stage companies, often in exchange for equity instead of cash fees.
Trading insight for ownership.
Precisely. In companies like Uber, Twitter, Postmates, even what seemed like a tiny piece of ownership back then blossomed into millions when they went public or got acquired. These were perfect examples of asymmetric bets.
Limited downside his time advising, but uncapped upside.
Exactly. Trading high-value insight for a share in that massive future potential.
But what about the mindset needed for this? Because it sounds great, but it can't be easy.
No, it's demanding. Equity ownership requires huge patience, massive patience.
Waiting years, maybe decades.
Absolutely. And it often means having the discipline to say no to immediate cash, turning down quick payouts for a much larger but delayed return.
That's hard.
It's really hard. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting day to day. It's definitely not immediate gratification. And that's why most people struggle with it. Our brains want the reward now, not in 10 years.
Yeah, we're wired for the short term.
Completely. And it ties right back to his other famous advice. Learn to sell. Learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable.
How does that connect?
Because the people who get truly wealthy and free, they're the builders who own what they create, and the investors who get in early on those builders' visions, grabbing a piece of that ownership.
They're the ones accumulating wealth while others are just chasing the next paycheck.
Exactly.
And this ownership, it also buys him that silence.
It's a significant level of silence, yes. He doesn't need to be constantly tweeting to make money. He doesn't need to sell courses or desperately build a personal brand for income.
His assets are working for him already.
Quietly, in private. That's the recurring theme with his wealth. It's quiet, it's deep, built on these invisible assets that just compound when no one's watching. No external validation needed, no constant performance required.
So it forces us, listening, to ask, are you still just trading your time for linear money?
Right. Or are you finally building something you can own, something that can grow without needing you there constantly?
Because freedom isn't in the paycheck number.
No matter how big it is, freedom is found in the percentage you own of something that doesn't need you every single day. Naval got that. He built his life on equity.
Yeah.
And it paid off in that quiet, lasting freedom.
Of course, there are risks, right?
Yeah.
Companies fail, equity gets diluted.
Huge risks, high failure rate, illiquidity for years, dilution. It's not a guaranteed path. But for Naval, the potential for ultimate freedom clearly outweighed those risks.
So for listeners, again, even if angel investing isn't on the table, how do you apply this ownership mindset?
Maybe it's negotiating for stock options or RSUs at your job, even if the base salary is slightly lower.
Okay. Owning a piece of where you work.
Or maybe starting a side project where you own 100% of the intellectual property, the potential upside, instead of just doing freelance work, trading time for money.
Seeking opportunities where today's effort yields compounding returns tomorrow without you needing to be there.
That's the core principle. Find ways to own, not just rent your time. Remember, freedom isn't in the paycheck number. It's in the percentage you own of something that doesn't need you.
And while equity quietly builds wealth, Naval also used a more visible asset, didn't he? His personal brand, but in a very different way.
Yeah, so while that equity is working silently in the background, Naval also leveraged something more visible, though still pretty unconventional, his personal brand and media presence, earning while you sleep through influence.
But it's influence built in a very specific, non-traditional way.
Totally. What's amazing is he doesn't do the daily social media grind. No vlogging, no constant LinkedIn hustle, not chasing follower counts like a typical influencer.
No rise and grind posts.
Definitely not. And yet, his name alone carries immense weight. It instantly commands attention in tech, in philosophy. Millions listen when he speaks or writes.
And that's because he didn't set out to build an audience in that superficial sense. He built a personal brand rooted in timeless value, real intellectual honesty.
It started organically, mainly on Twitter, right? Yeah, sharing these incredibly distilled, thoughtful bursts of wisdom, money, happiness, leverage, life.
Not just random thoughts, but deep principles condensed down.
Exactly. Profoundly simple, yet deeply insightful, often just a few dozen characters.
You remember those famous ones like play long-term games with long-term people?
Yeah.
That just took off.
Exploded. Became like a core principle for so many entrepreneurs. Or the other big one, seek wealth, not money or status. Wealth is having assets that earn while you sleep.
That became the definition for a generation.
A literal mantra for builders and investors. His words didn't just vanish in the digital noise, they multiplied, they echoed, they became actionable wisdom for thousands.
And people took his raw tweets and turned them into other things.
Yeah, it's incredible. People meticulously organized them, made quote cards, YouTube videos dissecting his ideas, entire podcast episodes about them, and of course, curated books like The Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Which he didn't even write himself, technically.
Right. Eric Jorgensen compiled it. And this wasn't luck. It showed Naval understood something fundamental in the digital age. Genuine wisdom scales exponentially.
One tweet reaches millions. One podcast sparks businesses.
One free ebook shifts how a founder sees their whole life. That's scale.
And unlike most influencers trying to monetize every click.
Naval famously never directly monetized his brand. No merch, no paid masterminds, no courses, no affiliate links, nothing.
But the influence itself, that became the asset.
Exactly, a silent engine of reputation, constantly working for him, opening doors, attracting opportunities, without him ever having to sell anything.
And the proof is in the organic way things spread.
Totally. His podcast, Spearhead from Naval, shot to the top of the charts with basically zero marketing, just pure value.
And the Almanac went viral despite being free online.
Because it offered profound, distilled wisdom without a price tag. The secret was elegant. Give away valuable ideas freely.
And those ideas return as trust, authority, and deal flow.
Immense trust, undeniable authority, and invaluable deal flow that others just couldn't get near.
So influence here isn't just likes or followers. It's about perceived wisdom, timeless relevance.
Right. Founders trusted him with equity because they valued his insights. Sophisticated investors followed his bets. Platforms invited him to speak without needing a pitch deck.
All because he built this aura of signal. cutting through the noise.
A powerful aura of signal. Clarity and depth in a sea of internet noise.
He didn't pose to impress, you said, but to imprint.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that imprint, those few profound ideas, those mental models living rent-free in people's heads, that became an enduring digital asset.
An asset that doesn't fade with algorithms.
Doesn't matter if the platform changes. It earns for him while he sleeps. Not necessarily direct cash, but opportunity, access, high-quality connections constantly flowing his way.
So while everyone else is scrambling for fleeting attention,
Naval's quietly letting his established brand do the heavy lifting. Because when your words shape minds, change perspectives, you don't need to shout.
your presence just echoes, whether you speak or not.
That's the real asset. Not fame, not audience size for its own sake, but the power to influence without constant effort. And that influence was another engine pulling him towards complete freedom.
But building that kind of brand, it's a long game, right? Requires patience, consistency.
Incredibly long.
Yeah.
And courage to share authentic insights, even if they're not popular immediately. No guarantee of virality. Needs real intellectual work.
So for listeners, it's about identifying your unique insights, distilling them.
Yeah. How can you share value concisely without expecting immediate payback? Build a reputation for substance, not just visibility. Let your ideas work for you.
And this idea of leverage and freedom. It connects to his thinking on crypto too, doesn't it?
It does.
Which leads us perfectly to the fifth silent asset. Crypto in his fund, Metastable. Basically owning the future before it was obvious.
Yeah, another example of his counter-crowd thinking.
You have to remember 2014. Bitcoin was seen as
What?
a fluke, a niche thing for techies or criminals.
Mostly dismissed or mocked by the mainstream. Ethereum wasn't even really a thing yet. Overwhelming skepticism, even ridicule.
But Naval, true to form, wasn't following the headlines.
No, he was looking at the code, the incentives, the potential power shifts blockchain offered. He saw way beyond the hype.
He saw the internet of money.
That's the frame. A foundational shift in how value could be moved and owned globally. Not based on price charts, but on understanding the core tech cryptography, decentralized consensus.
And that year, 2014, he co-founded Metastable Capital.
Right. One of the very first hedge funds focused only on crypto assets. He wasn't just dabbling. He was making a serious institutional level bet.
Way before Wall Street noticed. Long before it was trendy.
Miles ahead. Owning the future before it was obvious.
But why crypto? What was the appeal beyond just making money?
For Naval, it was much more than just another asset class. It was a deep philosophical alignment.
Philosophical alignment, how so?
Crypto, at its core, removes intermediaries. It decentralizes control. And importantly, it rewards early believers and participants, not just the established insiders.
So pure leverage for individuals, outside the old systems.
Exactly. Freedom from traditional institutional control. That resonated deeply with him.
So through Metastable, he invested in things like Bitcoin, Ethereum.
Yeah, foundational protocols. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Zcash, Monero, way before their market caps exploded. But beyond the profit potential, the key was the direct access to ownership.
Ownership without permission.
That's the crucial part. No VCs to convince, no board approvals, no gatekeepers, just a wallet, a well-thought-out thesis, and conviction in the tech.
So it wasn't just an investment. It was an expression of his values. Decentralization, sovereignty, asymmetric upside.
All of it. It fit perfectly with his definition of true wealth. Assets that work for you, grow over time, and can't be easily taken away or controlled by others.
And crypto runs 24/7.
Globally, nonstop. So his portfolio could move, could grow, even while he was totally offline, sleeping, no boundaries.
But you have to stress, he wasn't just gambling here.
Absolutely not. He approached it with intense study, deep conviction based on intellectual curiosity and understanding the fundamentals.
He backed things with long-term potential.
Rooted in cryptographic security, network effects, typical Naval style. He didn't chase the flavor of the month coins or pump and dumps. He backed protocols.
Protocols, meaning the base layers.
The foundational structures that others would build on top of. That's a vital distinction.
It's that pattern again, isn't it? While everyone else chases headlines and products.
Naval studies infrastructure. While others chase applications, he invests in systems. And when those systems inevitably grow, his stake grows quietly and exponentially alongside them. No daily intervention needed.
So for him, crypto wasn't about getting rich quick.
It was about building an independent future, a financial reality outside the traditional permission structures of banks and governments.
And it's also a lesson in timing and holding, right?
Huge lesson. He didn't just get in early, he got in early and held with unwavering conviction.
Even when markets crashed, headlines screamed panic.
Even when friends probably told him he was crazy and bailed, he trusted his thesis. That's a rare skill in itself.
What skill is that?
The ability to see real long-term value before the rest of the world does, and then have the ironclad patience and emotional strength to just wait for the world to catch up.
So while many saw crypto as just a risky fad,
Naval saw another strategic asset class: early ownership, leverage through tech, furthering his escape from dependency, played the long game, again, and it paid off, again.
not just in money, but in...
Optionality, sovereignty, freedom.
Now, crypto is obviously volatile. Regulatory risks, tech complexity, scams. It's not easy.
Definitely not for the faint of heart. Requires constant learning, high risk tolerance.
So the takeaway for listeners isn't buy Bitcoin.
Not necessarily. It's about cultivating Naval's approach to new tech. How can you develop a deep, informed thesis about what's fundamentally changing things, not just what's trendy?
How do you spot the underlying protocols, the infrastructure others will build on in any field, and position yourself for that long-term upside?
That's the lesson. And crypto, being about building systems that run themselves, connects perfectly to the next asset: code and product.
Right. This theme of building self-running systems leads straight to the sixth silent asset: code and product. Building engines that genuinely run themselves.
And Naval isn't just an investor, remember. He's a builder, a systems designer at heart.
And one of his core beliefs, like a fundamental law for him, is code is the most powerful form of leverage.
It's hard to argue with, really. Why does he say that?
Well, think about it. Code doesn't sleep, doesn't get tired, doesn't ask for a raise or complain or take vacations.
Right. Runs 204/7.
And crucially, it scales infinitely. It can reach millions, billions of people with basically zero extra cost for each new user, zero marginal cost.
So in his view, the best ROI isn't in real estate or stocks.
It's software, specifically software that works tirelessly without you needing to be there, constantly delivering value.
That's why you don't see him building traditional companies with thousands of employees, big offices.
Stuff that needs constant management.
Exactly. Instead, he either helped create or invested in products that solved a problem once, and then scaled that solution to millions forever with minimal human oversight.
He designs for autonomy, not for creating busy work.
Absolutely. Look at AngelList again. It automates that complex, previously manual process of startup investing.
Right.
His podcast, it spreads his ideas, his insights, his mental models efficiently without him having to repeat them constantly in person.
Scales his thoughts.
And even his newer thing, AirChat, the voice-first app trying to make social media more authentic. It's fundamentally built to run with minimal human dependency. Let conversations flow freely.
Every example is engineered to run smoothly without him needing to be hands-on all the time. Frees him up.
Allows him to be absent and still generate value.
And this idea goes beyond just programming code, right?
Yeah.
He sees product as a kind of digital labor.
Yeah, he famously said, product is just code and media that does the work for you while you sleep. It's a powerful concept.
So when you own a product like this, you're not trading time for money anymore.
No, you're trading your initial thought, your unique insight, your creative effort for scalable impact and exponential returns.
Your initial brain power gets amplified infinitely.
Your intellectual input translates into potentially limitless reach and continuous value creation.
And his advice for builders reflects this.
It's super clear, almost a formula. Build something once that solves a recurring, common problem really well.
Okay.
Let it run on servers, not on your personal sweat and late nights. Allow it to scale.
Yeah.
Design it to help people, even when you're completely offline, totally disengaged.
And let it compound.
Let it compound its value and impact over time. Make it more valuable the more it's used.
And the result of doing this?
Profound freedom. Time freedom. Energy freedom. Location freedom.
Which is why he pushes people to learn to code or learn to sell.
Because those two skills, creating and automating with code, and distributing and persuading through selling, they are the absolute backbone of leverage in today's world.
It's not about everyone becoming a coder.
No, it's about thinking like a builder, understanding automation, designing systems that inherently scale your effort, whatever your field is.
Even his own ideas are productized.
Totally. The Almanac isn't a live workshop he has to keep running. It's a timeless book designed to be relevant for years.
The podcast isn't timely news, it's evergreen.
Relevant years later. Every piece of media is engineered to be timeless and scalable. Maximum impact, minimal ongoing effort. No personal appearance needed for value.
It's really the magic trick, isn't it? He works once with huge leverage.
And then lets his assets work for him. Forever.
So while the world hustles and stays busy.
Naval operates behind these layers of code and product that quietly create value, reach people, print leverage. No office, no schedule, no burnout.
Just elegant design, strategic ownership, exponential payoff.
That's the power of building engines that run themselves.
Of course, building truly scalable code and product is hard. It takes effort, expertise, finding product market fit.
Immense challenges. Building software that runs without constant fixes is tough.
But the principle applies more broadly.
For sure. How can you, the listener, productize your expertise? Create templates, automate repetitive tasks, write an evergreen guide.
Think like a builder. Design systems that work for you, even if it's not a Silicon Valley startup.
Exactly. And all these assets, the investing, the platform, the equity, the brand, the crypto, the code, they all ultimately serve one final, most crucial asset.
Which is?
Time and attention. The final, most jealously guarded asset of them all.
Yes. Because money, theoretically, you can always make more. Ideas are flowing constantly.
But time and attention, absolutely finite, fragile, non-renewable. Once you spend them, they're gone. Forever.
And Naval gets this on a level most people don't seem to.
Better than almost anyone I've ever studied or read, he famously warned, a busy calendar and a busy mind will destroy your ability to do great things in this world.
And he lives by that, doesn't he? It's not just talk.
Lives by it with incredible, almost monastic discipline. It's hard for most of us to even imagine.
Like he famously doesn't take meetings.
Avoids scheduled calls. Prefers asynchronous communication or very short, intentional interactions. Doesn't compulsively check notifications or email. Can go days without looking at his phone.
He describes himself as hard to reach and impossible to push.
Right. And this isn't just about time management hacks. It's about fiercely protecting his mental clarity, his focus, his creative space, like it's sacred ground.
Because deep work needs uninterrupted time.
Exactly. Original thought needs space to breathe.
So for him, time isn't just a resource to manage.
It's the actual foundation of freedom itself. And attention. That's the steering wheel. That dictates where your energy, your creativity, your life goes.
And in a world addicted to urgency, notifications, constant demands.
He consciously chooses slowness, deep presence. He's not interested in being everywhere, being seen as always on.
He's interested in being nowhere.
Yeah.
Unless he truly wants to be there.
By choice. Not by obligation. That's the key difference.
And this level of control over your own time and attention, that's the ultimate layer of leverage.
The final layer. The one very few people ever reach, even if they become financially wealthy.
Why is that?
Because after you've built the assets, made the money, earned the influence, what's truly left as your most valuable possession?
Your day, your focus, your peace of mind.
Exactly. Your ability to decide where your mental energy goes. And that is what Naval has optimized for, above almost everything else.
Yeah, he doesn't wake up to an alarm. His calendar isn't jammed. He's not chasing headlines.
Because he deeply understands. If someone else controls your time, they still own a piece of your life, no matter how much they pay you.
And if you let your attention get scattered by every ping, every distraction,
you lose your power, your ability to think deeply, your agency. It doesn't matter how rich you are financially.
He once said something about enlightenment being happy with nothing.
Right. But his path to that kind of inner peace wasn't about becoming a monk. It was about systematically building enough leverage through all these assets we've talked about to finally powerfully say no.
No.
No to obligation, no to distractions, no to that endless, exhausting productivity race that traps so many successful people.
Even after they've made it.
Especially then, sometimes. He meticulously designed his life to be literally uninterruptible.
And that uninterruptible life, that's the rarest asset.
Arguably, yes. Not because it costs a lot of money, but because most people just never get there. They stay trapped in those loops of busyness even after they're wealthy.
Naval broke the loop.
He didn't just build wealth, he bought back his entire life. On his own terms.
The challenges here seem internal, though. Breaking that societal conditioning around busyness, FOMO, saying no.
Huge internal challenges, but think about it. For you listening, how much more focus could you have with just one uninterruptible hour a day? How much more peace from disconnecting sometimes?
Protecting time and attention isn't a luxury.
For Naval, it was the ultimate essential asset that made all the others actually deliver true freedom.
So when you put it all together, all the startups, syndicates, tweets, crypto bets, products, podcasts. What did Naval Ravikant really build?
Yeah, it wasn't just a company or even just an investment portfolio. He built a life.
A life designed specifically for his definition of freedom and peace.
And that's the core lesson, isn't it? Every single asset we talked about, angel investments, equity, his brand, media, code, crypto, they weren't just ways to make money.
They were tools.
Meticulously chosen tools, used with incredible precision to carve out this unique space for himself. A space where no one could tell him what to do, when to wake up, how to spend his day.
Because wealth without autonomy isn't really wealth.
And success without inner peace isn't really success. That feels like the deepest takeaway from his story.
He didn't just climb the ladder. He opted out.
Opted out of the traditional game entirely and built a whole new system around himself instead.
The system running on
Leverage, ownership, wisdom. A system that paid him in optionality, not in tasks.
And generously, he shared the blueprint.
Didn't hoard it. His mental models, tweets, podcast, the almanac, all free. Because he gets that wisdom compounds faster when it circulates, when you give it away.
But here's the catch, the paradox.
Most people won't follow this path, even with the map right there.
Why not?
Because it isn't fast. It's not flashy. It doesn't look like that hustle porn or startup grind stuff on social media. No private jets in the photos, usually.
It looks like.
Quiet work.
Yeah.
Playing really long games where payoffs might be years away. It demands extreme patience. Deep tolerance for uncertainty.
Rejecting dopamine for discipline?
Turning down money to protect time. Saying no to prestige to say yes to peace. Building for a future self that's truly free.
And that's the core paradox of his freedom, right? To get there.
You have to stop chasing what everyone else is chasing. You have to define success completely on your own terms.
So in the end, this isn't just about startups or wealth accumulation.
No, it's a story about choosing how to live. On your terms. With your values. Powered by assets that don't demand your constant presence. A life of quiet sovereignty.
And that truly is the richest kind of rich there is.
Absolutely.
Wow. You've just heard our deep dive into how Naval Ravikant built this incredible life. Quiet, wealthy, profoundly free. But remember, this wasn't just about him. It was about you.
Because now you see, true, lasting freedom doesn't come from just grinding harder or chasing more dollars. It comes from strategically building the right assets. Slowly, silently, with discipline.
So just take a moment now. Pause and ask yourself, which of these 7 assets are you maybe already building, even a little?
Yeah, maybe without even realizing it fully.
And which one feels the most out of reach right now? But maybe the most profoundly worth going after, given the freedom it could unlock for you.
We genuinely love to hear what you think about this. Drop your insights, your reflections in the comments wherever you're listening. Let this be more than just listening. Let it maybe spark something for your own journey.
And if this deep dive shifted something for you, made you think differently about time, money, freedom, please share it. Share it with someone who might need to hear this perspective.
Because sometimes the best thing you can give isn't cash or advice. It's just a new lens, a different way to see life and possibilities.
Here on The Deep Dive, we're going to keep bringing you these kinds of timeless blueprints, these stories behind quiet, self-made success.
That's the mission.
So if you believe in wealth with soul, in leverage used ethically, and in freedom with real purpose, then please do like, comment, subscribe. We're honestly just getting started.